With the recent announcement of Tokugawa Ieyasu, I wanted to do a bit of a deep dive into how he will influence the rally and garrison meta. And I just went through two insane KVKs, including the 1960 versus 2377 biggest KVK of all time. So in this video, sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms, I want to talk about how I think this commander shifts the meta. We'll talk about talents, because actually there's a lot to talk about there in a way that really surprised me. We'll talk about formation choices, which honestly in the mixed garrison context gets kind of interesting. And before we dive into all of it, we've got to just remind ourselves like what his skills even do, because even though I'm sure you saw and read through this already, you watched my video breaking down like, isn't this an interesting kit? We'll very briefly review all of these skills because, I mean, we're still learning what they are, right? So first, we have the active skill here, Smite damage, 2,400 factor, and a 10% defense reduction on the target for 3 seconds, plus a mighty shield of 600 factor. So we're really talking about 3,000 factor of goodness, which is kind of funny because when we look at the new rally, it does 3,000 combo attack damage. So I think there's 3,000 factor is the sort of new expectation for rally and garrison, which is kind of wild. Then you've got this skill, which is a buff. And the long version, or I guess the short version of the story, let's do that, is that you're basically going to have almost 100% uptime on 30% attack, 10% march speed, and 10% defense. And this is for infantry. Important to keep in mind that is for infantry. From here, we have a skill that is going to make it so you deal 10% more damage, obviously strong. You have a 25% chance to cleanse debuffs, which is pretty darn good. And you stack up to 20% health. Okay, health is nice, obviously. Important because infantry have a lot of defense on their gear. And then this skill up top, right over here, is going to make it so that as you're getting buffs, you're going to get a mighty shield of 1,200 factor. 50% chance to get the shield every time you get a buff. You should be getting buffed like all the time based on the other skill that he's got. And I don't know if gaining a shield will also qualify as a buff effect for this, but 1,200 shielding factor is amazing with a 7-second cooldown. That's a lot of shielding if it goes every 7 seconds, like a lot. Like, you're going to want to maybe pick some abilities that give you buffs to increase your chance of having 100% uptime on this, or as close to it as possible. But we're looking at 600 shielding factor on the active skill and 1,200 shielding factor over here. Plus, whenever this commander's troop launches a basic or a counter, you have a 15% chance, 30% if you have a shield, to deal smite damage to 3 enemy troops, fan-shaped area, damage factor 300, and that's got a cooldown of 10 seconds. Okay. Lot going on with this kit, but big picture, we've got smite damage, we have shielding, we have attack, defense, and health as stats, with a little bit of AoE damage, and it's AoE smite damage. Now, the obvious pair here is going to be to go with Gorgo, and for the first time, we can actually use Gorgo instead of like with the defense tree with her as the primary. We could use Ieyasu as the primary and move all in on smite. So the question is that actually better? And I suspect with the pincer formation coming out very soon, that in a situation like a fort that's not going to get swarmed, or especially like a pass, if you put that in there and you move all in on the smite damage, I think that plan could be pretty nuts. So let's just look at that pairing very briefly and the talents you could use, because I think there's something there. So as a quick reminder of what Gorgo is doing, her active skill is going to make it so that the first basic attack launched by this commander's troop within the next 1 second does 2,300 damage factor. You get 10% more normal damage, and with an extra 10% to counter damage for the next 3 seconds. And you take 20% less skill damage. So the funny thing is here that as much as I want to use the smite tree with Ieyasu as the primary, if I use Gorgo, my damage is boosted by 10% for my normal damage. So that actually seems really like I almost prefer the Gorgo to be primary, right? Then over here, this commander's infantry get 40% attack. A lot of attack on this garrison combo. Like a lot of attack. Whenever this commander's troop launches a basic, 10% chance to increase the target's normal damage received. Pretty cool debuff. If this commander's garrison, 30% health. Amazing. Whenever you launch a basic, 25% chance to do extra smite damage, 300 factor. The fourth skill, whenever this commander deals smite damage, you deal 30% more normal for the next 3 seconds. Oh my god. Wow, that is going to be some powerful anti-swarm with the 2 commanders doing smite damage. Yes, you have a 5-second cooldown, but if you can get this as close to 100% uptime as possible, that is an anti-swarm package all on its own. And then, when you get low, you have a chance when launching a basic or a counterattack to gain a mighty shield. It's 500 factor, it ain't much, but to reduce the attack of 5 nearby enemy troops by 30%. So there's obviously like a really, really strong smite synergy here. And if you use Ieyasu as the primary, you gain access to the smite tree instead of the defense tree. So is it worth it? Get a look at Gorgo's talents here. This is a mixed talent build, but let's talk about, I don't even have a full infantry build ready. That's kind of wild. Dude, I actually, unironically, need more than 3 talent presets for garrisons these days, which is awesome. Like, there's a lot going on, but I guess I should take a picture of this Swarm My City build, hope it doesn't happen, and reset it. Because if we're doing full infantry, what we get is, of course, these talent points over here. Now, it's important to mention, that package of 13 talent points you're going to want to have pretty much no matter what. They're very, very good. They're disproportionate for garrisoning. I suppose you don't need the skill damage mitigation on certain cav rallies coming your way, which is funny. Like, it's like I said, now more than ever, I honestly need, like, I'm not even kidding, like 10 different garrison builds at the ready, depending on what's coming at me. And, you know, let's assume I might get swarmed, I might not. So we're like preparing for that like rainy day, anything could happen situation. But if I were to use Gorgo primary, I'm definitely getting hold of the line. Whenever you have full infantry and you're hit with a basic, you have a 10% chance to take 20% less damage for the next 2 seconds. It's got a cooldown of 3. That's incredible. When you're getting swarmed, hold the line is amazing. Okay. From here, I don't know, we go around the board, taking just good stuff talents, making it so we take less damage, deal more damage. Cav rallies are really strong, and I want to be good anti-swarm anyways, so we take those talent points. I like these talent points under the assumption that they might rally, they might swarm, could be a bit of anything, right? This is pretty solid. I have 4 talent points remaining. Feel like I'm missing something. This is for defending your city only, so that ain't it. You could start to make your way over to medicinal supplies, but you can't get there. I don't think there's anything I would get rid of here. Gosh, like, are we really just talking about stats at this point? If so, I guess we just want to get health. So we're looking at defense over there, attack over there. For my 4 remaining talent points, I'm honestly kind of surprised I have 4 talent points remaining. But this shows that, like, for what it's worth, in the biggest KVK, like, I was garrisoning with mixed so often that I didn't even need the full infantry talent tree. I just want to give some perspective on how the meta has shifted in this game. This is a really big insight, actually, that, yeah, you might go for full anything, but these days, do you really go for full garrisons of one troop type? Not as much as you used to. We'll say it like that. So I'll take the health over there, and then I guess I would take defense as my next. Oh, there's health. We kind of got there. So like 3 points over there, I guess. You get health over here. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd rather have, oh, it's attack and health over there, attack and health over here. Whatever, we'll put those points there for now. And I might update the pinned comment because I feel like, you know, this feels weird to me. I don't know why I feel like I somehow didn't take something important or I didn't max something, but I did. Whatever. This is what you'd get, okay, with a full infantry Gorgo primary. So not only do you enhance your normal damage dealt, which is going to enhance your smite damage dealt from Ieyasu if you use Gorgo as the primary, but you're taking 3% less damage over here, 1.5% less damage over there, 9% less skill damage of all types. You deal 1.5% more counter. The defense tree absolutely slaps. So if we try to replicate that, okay, that in the Smite tree, I don't know that we can do that well. In fact, my takeaway is almost that in a defensive situation, the Gorgo primary is probably going to be better for the talent options. And if we look at Wallace, we've got Smite and Infantry. So we can keep in mind the number of talent points, okay, that would need to be set aside in the garrison tree. It's 13, right? Keeping in mind those 13 core talent points we need in the garrison tree, here is what I cooked up in the infantry plus Smite tree. So if you used Ieyasu as the primary, you still really won't hold the line. It is insanely valuable. Yeah, it is insanely valuable. It's very good anti-swarm. I like strong of body. I like taking fight or flight. Whenever you're dealing smite damage, the enemy is losing 45 rage. That is disgusting in this configuration, okay? You're dealing more smite damage. You deal 3% more counterattack, which is really nice. To the bitter end is making it so that every 10 seconds you're stacking up your smite damage. So I feel like the Ieyasu ends up being a high damage composition, whereas the Gorgo primary ends up being way more tanky. Killing Blow. Whenever you use an active skill, you gain a 6% bonus to all types of smite damage for the next 6 seconds. Wow. That's really good too. This almost makes up for the fact that Gorgo is increasing your normal damage dealt, right? Which would make Ieyasu do more damage if he's the secondary. This also is really good for enhancing smite damage. Yeah, very powerful. That is very powerful. So this is one route you could go, all right? And I think it's pretty good. But the other route you could go is to say, hey, you know what? Let's reset this. Is to say, hey, I want to try all in on the Smite tree, like all in. So you still need the 13 talent points for the garrison stuff. That's why we left 14 over here, right? There's 1 point of extra. In fact, just to make it really clear what I'm doing, right? I'll show you. I set this up just to be able to show you. But like this is the base garrison talents. It's 13 points. That's why I left 14. You always pretty much want to have these, except for these now, which with a certain, with the new Cav rally, you might pull off there with Subutai. And if you're doing a mixed garrison, it's actually these 25 talent points that you probably want to lock in. We'll talk about mixed garrisons in a bit, okay? Because we're still talking about the Gorgo pairing. But if we go back to Wallace, we say, show me what I get with just the full damage package, all right? Then you're going to take this over here, Thick Skin. You have to, because it's on your way to Thunderous Smite. At this point, we're just saying, we're going to just try to go all in on maximizing our smite damage. I don't know that this is the best you can do, but bear with me as we just explore this, okay? And if you're going that route, I still feel like Strong of Body is insane, okay? I still feel like you, in most cases, you definitely take this. Normal damage is enhancing your smite damage. This ends up being like an all damage boost, which is amazing talent points. And we don't have many talent points left now. So if you're up against cavalry, you have to spend these 5 points over here. And that's your remaining 5 points. That's it. If you're up against cavalry, you must take this, obviously. So that will be your remaining 5 points. If you're not up against cavalry, you could go over here and make it so you take more normal damage, which is not great, actually. Even against cavalry now, that actually kind of sucks. Pack-a-Punch ends up not being nearly as good as it used to be. And it feels really weird to miss out on these 3 points. In fact, you have to take to the bitter end. Oh, this is really weird. This talent tree gets really weird. I'm glad we're doing this. So you have to take this. You have to take this. It's too good to pass up on. I don't know that you can take Strong of Body. Like, would I rather have 2% of health? 2% of health per point or 0.5% of all damage? I guess I'd rather have the health, actually. That's wild. Okay, so I'm taking this. And I mean, I have the points for the all damage here. But if I'm dealing with cavalry, I don't. I have to take this. So the argument I'm trying to make here is to paint a clear picture that if you move in on this smite damage, it feels like this tree is much more oriented towards packing a strong punch than it is being able to handle getting hit. So I suspect you would use Ieyasu in situations where you're less worried about getting swarmed, especially in a pass, and you would use Gorgo as the primary in much more defensive situations. Because at the end of the day, like, Gorgo is offering an astonishing amount of defensive capability purely from talents. 3% less damage taken. What is this? Based on the star level. Right. A huge amount of defense over here. Less damage taken, less skill damage taken. It's pretty legit. But now we got to talk about Ieyasu with Hera. And this is also a part of the motivation for making the video was, who do you use now with Hera? Is it still Gorgo with Hera? Or is it Ieyasu? And I feel like Ieyasu does do some really cool stuff. Remember, 600 shielding factor, plus another 1,200 shielding factor going off periodically. You get a bunch of attack, you get some defense, you get some health, you clear debuffs. Which one of them is better at actually, like, taking a bunch of damage and working with mixed troops? So if you use Ieyasu as the primary, the weirdness there, and look, if you're using a Hera combo, I mean, you might just be handling a rally. You might also be expecting a swarm. You almost need like a matrix of like, are you going to get swarmed? Use this. Are you not expecting a swarm? Use that. But Hera has incredible anti-swarm, right? And so I almost wonder if you wouldn't prefer, if you had the leadership gear anyways, to use Hera as the primary. And I think the answer is actually yes. If you had the leadership gear, Hera is a really interesting idea for mixed troops, and then use Ieyasu as the secondary, right? Because you have health, debuff clearing, the smite damage seems legit, the shielding seems really synergistic with Hera, who, by the way, I mean, you're going to be doing this damage like all the time on cooldown, I would suspect, right? I don't know. If we get a look at the talents on Hera, obviously there's some cool stuff you can do, but if you were going to do a mixed garrison with Tokugawa, I think you might do something like this. You increase your damage taken and dealt, right? So you reduce damage taken, increase damage dealt. You get a ridiculous amount of stats over here, and then you have the defense tree, same package as Gorgo had. I mean, is that... I don't know. I feel like the leadership primary mixed troops could actually be really good. Am I crazy? Now, look, we're not even talking about artifact KVK yet. We're like, there's all kinds of stuff that opens up, and that's a whole other can of worms. But if we just speculate for a moment, okay, if we were going to go in and say, hey, we have to commit a bunch of talent points on Ieyasu, okay, to that mixed talent tree. In other words, I made this over here, right? If we got to commit 25 points like this, what are we getting in the Smite tree where we're like, oh yeah, definitely Ieyasu should be the primary, right? Like, what are we getting? And I do get that he reduces the enemy's defense. So like, there's that, and then you hit him with some skill damage. I mean, that's kind of nice. But it's a 10% defense reduction. Like, it's not insane. But if we have to reserve 25 talent points, right? Like, what can we do with this talent tree here to support that? We have to leave behind 25 talent points. Well, you definitely would take to the bitter end. I still kind of feel like fight or flight might be worth it. And now we're talking about having mixed troops. So you take Call of the Pack for sure. Double-headed axe feels pretty good. You take Iron Spear. And you don't have that many talent points left. You could increase your counterattack damage. That seems good. I only have 2 talent points left. That's it, right? That's it. So if we're going this route, something like this, I guess. Depending on how mixed it is, you could put them somewhere else. So do I think this talent tree, keep in mind also the garrison talents that go deep to get the mixed troop stats, do I think that this is better than what we're doing with the Hera primary? I don't think so, actually. Like, I think the defense tree and the way that we were looking at that is actually better. Which brings us to an interesting question, by the way, of formations. Because if I'm getting a 600 shield factor on the active skill and 1,200 shield factor periodically from Ieyasu, plus all the shielding from Hera, is it time to go hollow square on the formation? Actually asking. Now, Hooksy sent me a message, and he was like, no, you wouldn't go hollow square. It's overtuned to be anti-skill damage. So if we get a look at the codex for this really quickly, what would you get from hollow square? Well, what would Cocoon do? You take 5% skill damage resistance. Not going to help against the Attila Subutai rally, is it? Whenever this troop launches a basic attack, 10% chance to increase the strength of any shields it receives. I mean, that ain't bad. That ain't bad. Okay, what next? Inviolable. Wielder gains a 5% boost to all shields it creates. Okay. They take 10% less skill damage when it has a shield. So overtuned for skill damage. I mean, obviously good against a swarm, but okay. What next? Crowned. 5% boost to all shields. If the troop has a shield, it deals 3% more damage. If it does not, it deals 2% more damage. Okay. I mean, let's just call it 2.5% all damage on average or whatever, right? Like, and a 5% boost to shield. That doesn't feel insane to me. But then finally, what do we have here? Rounded. That could be a good one. Ooh, damage resistance of 5% is insane. That is actually insane. That is a crazy multiplier. I think Tinfoil Hat Chisgule is going to say that Hera primary, mixed troops, hollow square, it's an anti-swarm situation, could be a thing. I think it could be a thing. I think it could be very powerful. This alone is insane. 5% damage resistance is very, very, very tanky. The alternative will be Pincer, but like, just like how you're going to have mixed troops, you're going to have mixed commander capabilities here. You got skill damage, you got shielding, and you got smite damage if you try to run that with Ieyasu. And so I sort of feel like I actually think the hollow square could be kind of cool. The only downside is that Cocoon is doing some skill damage resistance stuff, which like very good against a swarm. Obviously going to be very powerful against archers unless those become true damage. And then it's just like, bro, imagine a world in which there's no meta rally that does skill damage at all. We're not there yet, but I'm just saying, like, if the game goes that way, ... because like Archer Rally is coming next, right? Is it going to be true damage or skill damage? What is this meta going to be? And we could end up in a world where, you know, maybe for a brief window of time, this shielding stuff could be pretty cool, especially if you're worried about getting swarmed and you've got that mixed troops fill with farms thing going on. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Obviously, the strong pair that everybody should be thinking about is Ieyasu and Gorgo. Obviously. That's very powerful. I will almost certainly put that on my city wall and just be like, hey, yo, I'm just going to train infantry and y'all can come at me and let's find out what happens. Yeah, for that, it also seems amazing. Even though, like, I don't know, I guess I should think about Hera still for that because mixed troops. Mixed troops, really. Call me crazy, but I think it's becoming more and more of a thing. And I think that is an artifact of the sort of design of the game forcing players to get leaner and leaner and leaner and leaner and leaner for Imperium purposes. And now that migration has changed in a pretty meaningful way to like points, I wonder if we'll start to see some relief to that. I'm not sure. I still feel like there's a lot of pressure to be as low power as possible, aka the sort of 1093 strategy to grow a kingdom, but we'll see. The reason I mention it is that the more we go in that direction, the harder it is to run mono-troop garrisons. But maybe we were just really weird. Maybe everybody was just really weird in the 960, 2377 KVK and just ran mixed when they shouldn't have. I don't know. Leave a comment. I'm hyped for the new garrison. You enjoyed the vid, throw a like on here, subscribe. You want to see my overview of the other infantry commander who's going to be just absolutely game-changing in the field? Check the cards in the end screen. Until next time, you have fun, smash your enemies. Watch these vids. Picked them out for you. About the other infantry commander. It's big smite damage. It's going to be very powerful.